In October, the governor's office introduced a program called the HOPE Grant to help people facing eviction, but the time to apply has passed and the eviction deadline is quickly approaching. That's December 31st. So today, 2 Wants to Know is getting your questions answered about the HOPE program, what's going on with evictions, and what kind of helps are out there for you right now. I'm joined today by Isaac Sturgill with Legal Aid of North Carolina and HAYNES from the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency. That's who helped administer the HOPE Grant. And we're here to answer your eviction-related questions. Now, you can text us the questions. The number is going to always be at the bottom of the screen, but you're seeing it big right now. It's 336-379-5775. And again, these are text-only questions, so please do not call. All right, we already have questions in the queue for you guys. Haley, this one is for you. It says, I applied and was accepted, but the last I heard from a HOPE program person was November 20th. When will someone contact me? I'm getting nervous because December 31st is approaching.
Well, what I would say is many of these applications are being worked on right now. And in fact, we've brought on a lot of new staff to redistribute some of the work where we just had too many cases with some case managers. And so they should follow back up with the person that they spoke to earlier. If they can't reach that person, then they should call 211 to get their case manager's information so that they can make direct contact. But we are actively working on those, and they're going to be assisted and processed. And so we're just asking people to be patient while that happens.
Right. And can you just give me a quick estimate of the numbers of how many applications were accepted?
There were approximately 42,000 that were found to be eligible, a little bit north of 42,000.
Okay, so we're talking about processing 42,000 different applications with paperwork. But again, 211 is the number to call, and you'll tell them, I am part of the HOPE Grant. I need to get to someone to talk to about that. All right, Isaac, this person's asking, if a tenant violates a term of their yearly lease, can a landlord evict them during the coronavirus? If so, is it a 10 or 30-day notice valid?
Well, so that depends on what the term of the lease is, and it depends on a couple of other things. There is the CDC eviction moratorium, and for tenants who qualify for that and who have signed the paperwork and given it to their landlord showing that they qualify, the landlord cannot evict them before the end of the year for non-payment of rent, and that's something that's prohibited under the CDC moratorium. But there's other things, other breaches that the landlord could evict a tenant right now for, like criminal activity, property damages, health and safety violations, and terms of the lease other than non-payment. So if it's one of those things, the landlord could file an eviction case and proceed with that. Right now, as far as what type of notice is required, it really depends on the lease and whether or not the property is subsidized, like Section 8, or if it's private. So I couldn't answer that notice unless I saw the lease and knew what the property was.
Well, someone kind of followed up with this question. How much time does a landlord need to give me if they're issuing an eviction notice?
It depends. That again, it depends on what the eviction is for and what the lease says. So for example, for verbal leases or for some written leases in North Carolina, the landlord has to give a 10-day notice if it's a non-payment case. But for other types of leases, there might be a different notice requirement. So it really depends on the lease and what the eviction is for. And that's something that legal aid will help advise people on. If they've gotten an eviction notice and they're wondering whether or not it's sufficient, that's something where we could take a look at the lease in those cases and give them advice on whether the notice is good enough.
All right, and if you've never heard of Legal Aid of North Carolina, it is an entity that will assist you for free. So you can call them, you can email them, and you are able to talk to someone to figure out where you need to go next, yes?
That's right. So the purpose of our organization is to give legal representation to people who otherwise cannot afford it. So if you call Legal Aid, we're going to ask some questions about your income to see whether or not you're eligible for our services. And if you are eligible, then our services are free of charge.
All right, this person is saying, I received 2 letters from the HOPE program about assisting with my electric bill, but I haven't heard anything else from them. Is there anything that I need to be doing?
So what I would say is if they remember whether or not they uploaded their utility bill at the time that they applied, if they didn't have that utility bill on hand, we would ask that they find their utility bill or get the latest one and have that ready when their case manager contacts them either by phone or email. That is something that will be needed. But at this point, they should be just checking their email and making sure they've got their phone nearby so that if someone does reach out, they can respond immediately.
All right, Isaac, this person says, can you be evicted from a business like my hair salon?
As far as I know, the CDC order the moratorium only that for non-payment only applies to residential tenants. I'm not aware of any moratorium on commercial evictions right now. I think part of Governor Cooper's order back in June had a temporary moratorium for some commercial evictions, but that's expired at this point. So I'm not aware of anything that would prevent a commercial eviction. They'd have to have a good reason to, like a violation of the business lease or whatever, but there's not a moratorium on those types of evictions right now.
Okay, we're going to continue to take your questions. You can text them to us. The number there at the bottom of the screen, 336-379-5775, and we'll be right back.